Behind the mic brings up a really great question here. Yeah, so he says, "Would this start a shift of getting older guys in the Truck Series to start taming these young guys that do idiotic things on a regular basis?"
I mean, I'll tell you, Matthew, I would love to see more veterans in trucks. I feel like it's kind of shifted a little bit over the years because when I first started watching NASCAR in 2007, you had Hornaday, you had Skinner, and that was a great championship battle. You had Todd Bodine there, you had Jack Sprague, um, Ted Musgrave, Terry Cook. I'm just trying to come up with more names off the top of my head. Johnny Benson was there. And it almost seemed like a veterans tour in many respects. Now, you also had Brad Keselowski got his big break that year with Germain, and that led to a big break in what was Busch Series at the time, then Nationwide with Junior Motorsports. So you certainly had some drivers who were, at the opposite end of their careers trying to work up, but it felt like predominantly, at least the guys running up front for wins and championships, those were your veterans who respected one another and knew how to race hard, but not take it over the limit. And I think that's been something that's been missing from trucks over the past several years. You've kind of actually seen it in Xfinity, if you think about it. Elliott Sadler went down from Cup to Nationwide in 2011 and then raced for several years there. Justin Allgaier briefly raced in Cup with H. Scott Motorsports, obviously not very strong equipment, but got an opportunity to go back with Junior Motorsports and said, maybe racing on Saturdays might not be so bad after all. He's made a nice career out of that for himself. AJ Allmendinger did it for a couple of years. Now he's back in Cup. So, I mean, there's been opportunities there, but I feel like what we've seen some drivers do in Xfinity in recent years, that used to be more so what the Truck Series was all about. And the then Busch Series and Nationwide Series, that was more for your younger drivers who had just moved up from ARCA, and also your independent teams. Like think of your Ryan Sieg and Tommy Joe Martins with Alpha Prime Racing. The guys that don't have the budget to race in Cup, but still want to be competitive in NASCAR and have an opportunity to race there. I'm not saying that people need to be tied to, this is the series you need to enter if this is what you want to do. I think certainly if some drivers want to use trucks as a step on the development ladder, because I think the jump from ARCA to Xfinity is a little bit much, then I think that's fine. But I think it would certainly help if you had some older veterans in the Truck Series. Matt DiBenedetto may be a good example there. Somebody that went to Cup for a few years, came close to winning a race a couple times, but has now taken a ride in Truck Series and had some success and even won a race last year at Talladega. So I think the more we get of that in trucks, I think would absolutely help rein some of the younger drivers in and teach them a little bit more respect.
Yeah, and bringing Cup guys into these lower series certainly is in no way going to delegitimize their importance.
Right.
Like it's not going to do that like we think it is. As long as it's done in this right way, where I guess where it's a guy that's like Kyle Busch that's at the end of the road, end of his mainline Cup career, and is going to take this next step.
Yeah, and who knows? You know what? Brad Keselowski's back in ownership now with RFK. He had Brad Keselowski racing for several years. He could actually do it too. He's got a Cup championship. He's got a Xfinity championship. The only thing he's missing is a truck title. So,
and I would say he would do really well back in a truck again.
I think he would too.
Yeah.
And I still remember, again, not a huge fan of Cup guys in the lower divisions, but when he won that truck race at Bristol in 2014, I know that meant a tremendous deal to him because he talked about his father's history in that series and, his father almost going bankrupt trying to get him started in that series with their family team and eventually working his way up the ladder from there. So to get a win in that series, on a personal level meant a lot to him. And I completely understand and respect that. If Brad decides in a few years, I've done everything I wanted to do in Cup, maybe, he and Kyle have always kind of had this personal rivalry as well. Maybe he inspires Brad to go do the same thing, I'd welcome it there too.